Tim, welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at the Jaeger-LeCoultre Amvox5 World Chronograph. 44 millimeters in titanium and black ceramic. You can buy this JLC Amvox on our website, watchyowant.com, and if you like these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now, one of 300 made in this combination of titanium and black ceramic, this watch is part of the JLC Amvox series from 2005 to 2015, just concluded. The series commemorated the long relationship, the better part of a century, between Aston Martin of Gaydon, England, and Jaeger-LeCoultre of Le Sentier, Switzerland. Now, from the 1920s on, JLC supplied dashboard speedometers, tachometers, and clocks to Aston, and the watch series, the Amvox, really represented the first time that the Aston logo went on a JLC rather than the other way around. Now you can see on my wrist 16 centimeters in circumference, that's 6.3 inches. The watch is an easy fit. It actually sits relatively low, being only 14 millimeters thick with a heavily domed crystal. It's actually thinner than the Amvox 2 and DBS chronographs, so this one sits rather low for its size. And although it is a 44, you can see how the lugs don't even extend out to the edge of my wrist. There is no overhang, there's no sense that the physical footprint of the watch is too big for a smaller wrist. And even if your wrist is as small as 15 centimeters or just under 6 inches in circumference, you're going to find that this is a very comfortable, easy fit. And that's helped by the fact that the ceramic and titanium case is exceptionally light, the lugs are exceptionally short, and the high-quality combination textile and calfskin leather strap is very supple, very soft. Now, another element from an ergonomic standpoint that really helps is having a twin swing arm double deployant clasp. The reason this works better is because you're able to open and close the watch in smaller increments, making it easier if you do have to notch it down to the smallest buckles, as I do, the smallest pin buckle apertures. You're going to have no trouble closing it or opening it when you get down to that tight fit. This watch fits well, it wears easy. Ergonomically, JLC's first ever ceramic round case is a big success. And yes, it does share that first ever ceramic round case with the 2008 JLC Amvox 3, the Tourbillon GMT. But the Tourbillon GMT's upfront tooling costs were so high that JLC needed to extend the run of ceramic cases used to make that watch, and thus the Amvox5 Chronograph was born. Now, while the Amvox 3 was a tourbillon with a GMT second time zone, the Amvox 5, issued in a series initially of 200 rose gold and ceramic pieces and 300 titanium and ceramic pieces, was a more practical timepiece, featuring the more useful chronograph and world time functions, as well as a jump date. This watch offers a lot more day-to-day utility. In fact, I was just setting a watch with, believe it or not, 5 separate time zones here, and I was setting it using the world time function of this Amvox 5. It's quite useful once you get the hang of reading the hour next to the reference city, one for each of the 24 time zones of the globe. You really get the ability to simultaneously call out 24 different world time segments without having to resort to your computer or do any mental backtracking or forward tracking mathematically. Now, the chronograph speaks for itself. The chronograph is probably the king of complications. From a practical perspective, the ability to start running a stopwatch and clock anything, in terms of elapsed time, it's just about the most useful complication you can find short of a second time zone or a jump date, and far more dynamic than either. Combined with the world time, you have a very useful watch. Whether you're following a foreign 24-hour race or you're at the track itself clocking your Aston Martin, this is a very versatile, high-content complication. Now you can see that it's also partially skeletonized. It takes the horizontally opposed twin timing discs of the Amvox 2, which you'll recall was the vertical trigger chronograph, and it pairs them with the skeletonized central dial and hour and minute rotors of the DBS variant of the Amvox 2, and then exposes some of the base plate and the motion works of the hands just below. So you get a partially skeletonized dial, you get some of that Amvox 2 design cue, but you get the versatility that comes with having the full world time present at all times. Now, some elements that might be overlooked at first glance include the AM/PM indication, which is much like the Master Compressor Extreme World Chronograph, in that you have an AM/PM indicator that features basically a half crystal It's a crescent-shaped crystal across half the dial that, I'll show you how that works, more or less follows the track. I'm showing you the different tracks of the cities, the hours, and then that crystal that covers the daytime hours. So the daytime hours will always be covered by that crystal to make for an easy visual reference. It's the kind of thing that plays more obvious in person than on camera, but I want to emphasize that it is there. It is a different layer of depth and detail to the dial. Now, in terms of how you set the world time, I want to set it in motion again. Follow the city New York right here, because that's where I am. Not so much New York, but I am in the U.S. Eastern Time Zone. Now, I set New York at 6 o'clock on the dial. That's the reference point from which I judge the relative position of every other city. So once I set New York at 6 o'clock, I know to look there for my home time, and you can see here in the Eastern Time Zone it's just after 2 o'clock, well, substantially I should say. It's almost 2:40, and if you look down here, the time just to the right of the index, 14, that's 2 o'clock. I look to the minutes hand to get my minutes, and I can see that it's about 2:39 here in the Eastern U.S. Time Zone. Likewise, I can look to any part of the globe. I can just look slightly counterclockwise of the reference city and see what time it is. Like Dhaka. In Dhaka, for instance, it's going to be just after 2, or just about 2:40 a.m. as opposed to 2:40 p.m. down here. So very versatile complication, and once you get the hang of it, it's quite easy to use. I want to call out some of the other features of the watch, including the special branding. Now, Aston Martin probably launched almost as many models and variants as JLC during the years of the 2000s, and when this model debuted in 2010, the new hotness was the V12 Vantage. Now, the V12 Vantage was a combination of Aston's smallest car and biggest engine, quite dynamic in its own right. It was a thrilling piece, but you'll notice that the branding Aston Martin on JLC is rather discreet. It consists only of the case back dedication and, if you look carefully, a constant seconds indicator with the Aston Martin wing logo, bicolored, rotating at 6 o'clock. Inside the case, you'll note this is JLC's own in-house chronograph. You can't see it so much as you can feel it and appreciate it in motion. Now, when you use the chronograph, you're actuating a column wheel. Traditional, precise, harder to make, more expensive, and more difficult to tune. It is the preferred method for building an upscale chronograph. You won't find a cam lever system here. What you also get is a vertical clutch. So you'll note when I reset the watch, it resets precisely to the index at 12, and when I start it, it begins a smooth sweep without a jump. It stops without any kind of stagger. That's what a vertical clutch engagement brings to the table. When paired with the column wheel for a sharp tactile response, the vertical clutch gives you a superior level of functionality and durability. So not only do you not have those jumps and imprecision, but because the vertical clutch doesn't have any moving train of its own the way a horizontal clutch has train wheels in motion, there's no wear between those gears. So the vertical clutch, if you prefer to have this constant center seconds instead of looking at that little constant sub-seconds at 6 o'clock, you can just keep the sweep seconds hand going with no consequence to the movement. You can just run it full time and just consider it to be the seconds component of the civil time, hours, and minutes. Inside JLC caliber 752, their latest generation of chronograph calibers. You get the ceramic rotor bearings, maintenance-free, unlubricated, highly efficient, unidirectional winding, more efficient still, a 65-hour power reserve, so plenty of autonomy if you feel that this all-black watch is maybe a little bit too sporty, too severe for certain sober occasions. You can take it off, put it on a day or two later. No need to reset the world time, reset the date, or reset the time. Plenty of autonomy in that respect. It also features spire-cut gears, an innovation that JLC collaboratively designed with several other watchmakers that improves the efficiency and service life of the gear train itself. Very tough, free-sprung, just like a Rolex, so that when you shock the movement, you can't accidentally move a mobile regulation index. You can't accidentally permanently change the timing by shocking the watch and displacing a timing organ inside it. Also features a laser-welded hairspring of JLC's own design, so even that element can't accidentally be displaced and begin to induce timing and beat error. So this watch represents the latest technology from JLC, both in terms of the movement architecture and in terms of the case. 2008 was the first use of ceramic in JLC cases. Two watches, the Amvox3 Tourbillon GMT that we discussed, and the Reverso Squadra World Chronograph Polo Fields introduced the kiln-fired high-tech material, and it has immense practical utility because while it looks rather dramatic, it's also remarkably resilient. High-end mechanical watches can be refinished, but it's something collectors prefer to avert because it generally removes metal. With ceramic, not only do you not have to refinish them, but you'll rarely notice any wear, scratches, or scuffs because virtually as hard as the sapphire crystal itself, ceramic, unlike PVD steel, will continuously shake off insults and injuries that could disfigure coated steel. It's really the material of the future in the watch industry, and as I noted at the beginning of this review, it is very light on the wrist. You can see, and if you like, drive home this Aston Martin-inspired Jaeger-LeCoultre Amvox5 World Chronograph on our website, watchyouwant.com.